It began with a contradiction. A boy barely in his 20s, ruling a small, rough kingdom on the edge of the Greek world, suddenly decides he will destroy the greatest empire on earth. Not weaken it, not negotiate with it, destroy it. The odds are absurd. His army is outnumbered, his treasury nearly empty, his generals unconvinced, and behind him, Greece is restless and ready to revolt the moment he fails. By every rule of history, what follows should not have worked. And yet, it did. This is the story of Alexander the Great, and the empire that logic itself could not explain. When Alexander became king of Macedon in 336 BCE, the crown was still warm with blood. His father, Philip II, had been assassinated in front of the court. No one knew who had ordered it. Some suspected rival nobles. Others whispered about Alexander's own mother, Olympias. What mattered was this: the throne was unstable. Enemies circled from every direction, and Alexander was only 20 years old. In the ancient world, youth was weakness. Kings were expected to hesitate, to prove themselves slowly. Alexander did the opposite. He moved fast, brutally fast. Within months, he crushed internal rivals, executed potential claimants, and marched south into Greece. When the city of Thebes rebelled, Alexander didn't negotiate. He erased it. The city was burned, its people sold into slavery, its ruins left as a warning. Greece fell silent. The message was clear: follow me or disappear. Only then did Alexander turn east, toward Persia. The Persian Empire was not just another enemy. It stretched from Egypt to India, ruled tens of millions of people, commanded vast wealth, and had defeated countless invaders before. Macedon, by comparison, was a speck. Alexander crossed into Asia with around 40,000 men. Persia could raise armies many times that size without blinking. From the outside, this looked like suicide. But Alexander understood something his enemies did not. Empires don't collapse when they are attacked. They collapse when their leadership hesitates. The first major clash came at the Battle of the Granicus River. Persian satraps laughed at the young king's arrogance. They lined the riverbanks with cavalry, confident that Alexander would wait. He didn't. He charged straight into the river under a storm of arrows. His men followed, slipping on rocks, shields raised, chaos everywhere. At one moment, a Persian noble struck Alexander's helmet, splitting it open. Another blow would have ended the story right there. But Alexander killed his attacker at the last second. The Persian line broke. The impossible had begun. Word spread quickly. This Macedonian king didn't fight like others. He led from the front. He bled with his men. He didn't retreat. The real test came soon after, against King Darius III himself at Issus. Darius commanded a massive army. Alexander's force was trapped between mountains and sea. There was no room to maneuver. Again, logic said Alexander should fall back. Again, he attacked. He drove directly at Darius, cutting through the center like a spear. When Darius fled, the entire Persian army collapsed behind him. The emperor of the world ran from a man half his age. From that moment on, the war stopped making sense. Cities opened their gates without resistance. Others resisted and paid the price. None more famously than Tyre, a fortified island city that believed itself untouchable. Alexander responded by doing something no one had ever done before. He ordered a causeway built across the sea, stone by stone, under constant enemy fire. It took months. His army suffered. His patience snapped. When Tyre finally fell, Alexander ordered a massacre. Thousands were killed. Thousands more were enslaved. It was not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was terror as policy. Submit, and you live. Resist, and the sea itself will not save you. Yet here is where the story turns strange. Alexander was not just destroying Persia. He was absorbing it. After taking Egypt, he was crowned pharaoh. He did not mock their religion. He embraced it. He visited the oracle of Siwa, where priests declared him the son of a god. Whether he believed it or not, he understood its power. Alexander was no longer just a Macedonian king. He was becoming something else. When he finally defeated Darius again, this time decisively at Gaugamela, the Persian Empire effectively died. Darius fled east, only to be murdered by his own men. Alexander did something no conqueror was expected to do. He did not celebrate Darius's death. He honored him. He wrapped the Persian king's body in royal garments and buried him as an emperor. Then he declared himself the rightful successor. This was the moment his empire should have fallen apart. Alexander began wearing Persian clothing. He adopted Persian court rituals. He married Persian nobility. He recruited Persians into his army. To his Macedonian generals, this looked like betrayal. They had followed him to conquer Persia, not become Persian. Tension simmered. Accusations flew. Old friends were executed. One of Alexander's closest companions, Cletus, saved his life in battle, then was killed by Alexander himself in a drunken rage. The empire was expanding, but the cracks were growing deeper. And still, Alexander marched on, eastward, beyond the edges of the known world, through deserts that killed thousands without a single battle, into India, where war elephants crushed men beneath their feet and arrows darkened the sky. At the Hydaspes River, Alexander faced King Porus, a warrior as determined as himself. The battle was brutal, soaked in rain and blood. Alexander won, but at a cost. His army was exhausted. For the first time, his men refused to go further. They had reached the end of the world, and they would not follow him into the unknown. Alexander stood there, furious, broken, undefeated, and forced to turn back. He was 32 years old. By the time he reached Babylon, Alexander ruled the largest empire the world had ever seen. But it was held together by one thing alone: him. There was no clear system of succession, no shared identity. Greeks, Persians, Egyptians, Babylonians, all ruled by a man who never stopped moving. Then, suddenly he did. In 323 BCE, Alexander fell ill after a banquet. Fever, weakness, silence. Within days, he was dead. No battle, no warning, just gone. When asked who should inherit the empire, his answer was reportedly simple: to the strongest. The empire that should not have worked collapsed almost immediately. His generals turned on each other. Wars erupted. The empire fractured into kingdoms that spent generations fighting over the remains. Within decades, Alexander's unified vision was gone. And yet, here is the final twist. Though his empire died, Alexander's impact did not. Greek language, culture, science, and ideas spread across continents. Cities he founded became centers of learning. Trade routes connected worlds that had never touched before. The ancient world was permanently reshaped. Alexander failed at building a lasting empire, but he succeeded at something far more dangerous. He proved that the impossible could be done by speed, audacity, and belief. He proved that empires were not eternal. And he left behind a question that still haunts history to this day. What happens when the world follows someone too extraordinary to replace?